story.
Nope. No, stop.
All right, let me continue that lighthouse story for you. The Lighthouse Keeper's Discovery continued. Weeks passed, and the blue flower grew larger, its chimes growing more complex. Elias began to notice chimes turned frantic. The Midnight Arcade. Marcus had always wondered why the old arcade at the end of Maple Street stayed dark during the day but glowed with neon lights every night at exactly midnight. Tonight, curiosity finally got the better of him. As the clock tower chimed 12, he watched the dusty windows flicker to life with brilliant blues and reds. The faded Game Zone sign buzzed back to existence, and he could swear he heard the distant bleeps and bloops of classic arcade games. He pushed through the heavy glass door, expecting it to be locked, but it swung open easily. Inside, rows of vintage arcade cabinets hummed with electricity. Pac-Man, Galaga, Street Fighter, games that looked like they'd been waiting decades for someone to play them. But something was off. The high-score screens showed impossible numbers, and the initials weren't normal three-letter combinations. Instead, they read things like Ghost, Spirit, and Echo. Marcus approached a Donkey Kong machine and dropped in a quarter he'd found on the floor. As soon as he pressed start, the screen flickered, and instead of the familiar gorilla, he saw himself, but not quite right. This version of Marcus moved independently, turning to wave at him through the screen. Finally, the screen, Marcus said, his voice crackling through the old speakers. We've been waiting for someone to find us. We're all the kids who got so good at these games. We became part of them. Want to join the Ultimate High Score Club? Marcus looked around and noticed other figures moving inside the game screens, kids from different decades, all grinning and beckoning him to stay and play forever. He smiled, cracked his knuckles, and said, "Let's see what you've got." The next morning, the arcade was dark and dusty again. But if you look closely at the Donkey Kong machine, you might notice a new high score at the top of the list, with the initials marked glowing just a little brighter than the rest. Midnight Arcade continued. Marcus found himself standing inside the game world, pixelated but somehow still himself. The other kids gathered around him. There was Jenny from 1987 who'd mastered every level of Centipede, and Carlos from 1994 who could beat Street Fighter with his eyes closed. "Welcome to the real game," Jenny said, her voice carrying that familiar 8-bit echo. "Here, we don't just play the games, we are the games. Every night, we keep the arcade alive." Marcus looked around at the digital landscape that stretched beyond the cabinet screens. It was like being inside a massive interconnected world where all the games existed together. Pac-Man's maze connected to Frogger's highway, which led to the platforms of Donkey Kong. But what about the real world? Marcus asked. Carlos laughed. "This is real. Out there, people just press buttons and watch screens. In here, we live the adventure. We are the high scores." As the night wore on, Marcus realized he had a choice to make. He could return to his regular life of homework and chores, or he could stay and become part of something legendary, a guardian of the games, keeping the magic alive for future players who might stumble upon the Midnight Arcade. The clock began chiming 6 a.m., and the neon lights started to flicker. Time to choose.